The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by Ice Cold, Tito's Handmade Vodka, which is perfect with a splash of grapefruit. And Mike Detillier joins us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Mike, let's before I get into some LSU, have the Saints identified a couple of things, and what are they? I understand the NFC South is not strong by any stretch, but are they bottling a couple of things that they could do some things here over the next 8 weeks?
Well, Bo, they're feeding off what's really kind of drove their boat around the water, and that is their offense. Sean Payton, I think every year but one has been in the top three when it comes down to total offense. This year, number one again. Drew Brees, you know about what he can do. But the last couple of weeks, Sean has been patient, and I use that word because the running game has kicked in pretty well with Ingram and Hightower, or Hightower Ingram, however you want to cut it. And he knows a stat that I've said over and over again. When the Saints run the ball 30 times or more, they are 40-4.
Good grief.
So get to 30. I mean, because, one, it keeps your defense off the field. The Saints don't have a great pass rush, obvious. They're hurting in the secondary. But, man, when you look at that stat, it tells you the whole story about what wins in the NFL level. Balance. You can't have Drew Brees throwing 55 passes and you rush the ball 19 times. That's not going to work. But we saw a lot of that in years past. So I think the last couple of weeks has been patient with the running game and the giveaway-takeaway ratio. This team got 4 takeaways against San Francisco. They've only been in the plus side of that stat one time. No, twice in the Peyton era, and one was in 2009 when they won the Super Bowl.
That's remarkable. How about that? 30-plus rushes per game. Sean Payton's 40-4. I mean, holy smokes. Mike Detillier, Saints Insider, SaintsReport.com on the Out of Bounds Show. Mike, do you think, how coaches like to get cute, and everybody loves to throw the football this day and age. Do you believe that Sean Payton is willing to commit to it from now through the end of the year?
It all depends on how it starts with him. Okay. I'll be honest with you. If he has a little success early on with the running game, he normally is very patient with it. But when he doesn't, then it's bombs away. And I think you're catching Denver at a really good time. This is a sort of a beat-up football team. Don't have Derek Wolfe. Questionable with Aqib Talib, and I just got a feeling the Saints will win against Denver Sunday, and then they start to ride the roller coaster. They to the top now, and start to make the little shovel down.
Denver is right, kind of in a rock and a hard place. It looks like they're going to give Trevor Siemian another game, maybe 2. Mike, before playing Paxton Lynch. So I think you may be right. I mean, the Saints really could be catching this at the right time. And if they win, they're 5-4. Is it time to start maybe setting some new goals, or is it pump the brakes? How do you see it?
Well, again, you've used up so much energy, and Sean has brought that up many, many times, that when you start out slowly, you use up so much energy as a team to get yourself back to 500 or close. The schedule is set up that, like I think I've talked about from the start, that this team could be an 8-8 team, could possibly squeeze out 9 wins. Does 9 wins get you in the playoffs? Who knows? But, you've got Drew Brees, and that's the part that a lot of teams don't have. He's got the ability to elevate your squad to another level late in the season when there's a lot of injuries, not only on your team but on others. He's made the difference. And let's just see now with the addition, getting back health-wise, of Sheldon Rankins and Delvin Breaux, how much better this defense can get.
Wow. Okay. Mike Detillier, the Saints are 4-4. Looks like they're catching Denver at the right time. Elway and Kubiak have yet to decide. Because don't you agree, Mike, that it looks like the Broncos are going to give Simeon one more game, maybe two, before they go to Lynch? Because as we all know, once you go to Lynch, you can't go back, right?
Once you cross that line, it's difficult. And I think they trust Trevor today more than they trust Paxton.
Sure.
They trust him offensively. And he knows what the hell he's doing on every play. I'm not sure Paxton on every play knows exactly what has to be done. And, I say that about college football, too. A lot of people say, about dumb jocks. Well, you can't be a dumb guy and play this game today. I mean, what's being thrown at you at warp speed, you got to know what you're doing. Now, again, you're not splitting the atom here, but you got to be able to concept that real quickly.
What do you see? I'm not buying Atlanta, Mike. I'm just not. Are you? But give me your thoughts. What do you see? How would you describe this Falcons team as we're midway through the season?
Very much like the 2011 Saints, which were a really good football team. Matt Ryan's having an MVP type year. You got a superstar in Julio Jones. You got the ability to run the football, and you've done that well. You got a lot of guys on defense that most people couldn't name, but they get it done. And what this team has scored over 40 points the last couple games. Man, you riding in the left-hand lane of traffic. The key here is up front for Atlanta. If there's a weakness on this football team offensively, it's at the guard spots. But the biggest offseason acquisition in the NFC South and maybe in the NFC was Alex Mack. Atlanta signing him away from Cleveland. Look how much more time Ryan has to throw the ball with Alex Mack playing center. And so, you know what? I'm a believer in Atlanta. I think they're a pretty doggone good football team. But if you hear the hoofbeats in the background, it's the Carolina Panthers. They have been through this before. They have walked down that football aisle, and I got to believe they're going to make up some ground real strong in the NFC South late. Because they've done it before. They understand what it is to do. And Rivera's, he's a steady guy with his hand on the wheel. He didn't panic when his team didn't start out as well as I think everybody anticipated.
Mike Detillier, Saints Insider on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. Mike, in the NFC, who's the best team today? Is it the Cowboys? Do you go with the Seahawks? Or who do you like the best as far as marching through the next 8 weeks, or is it another team?
Cowboys right now are the better team. With their ability to run the ball, control the clock, and Dak has played way above, I think, anybody's expectations. Seattle is a team really having a lot of difficulty on the offensive side. The football, Green Bay has been mercurial all year long.
Yeah.
So there is not that big cut above. I will say this. I think the Super Bowl winner comes out of the AFC. I think there's no doubt that right now the AFC is not just one notch ahead of the NFC, but maybe two.
What are they going to do? What is Jerry Jones going to do with the Dak Romo deal, Mike?
He's got to keep riding the Dak train. And I think Tony's, smart enough to understand that at this point you can't pull a winning quarterback out and put him in. It does give, though, you an option in case of you get a situation that Dak doesn't play well, that you can go to Tony. But there's no way you can pull him. That your success as a quarterback, and that's not like pulling a guard or a safety. You're talking about your leader on offense. If Jerry does that, he's dumber than I think he is, and I know he won't, because deep down inside he realizes at this moment in time, Dak Prescott is not only his quarterback for the present, it's his quarterback for the future.
Mike, I got to go back to the Saints. Mike Detillier, follow him on Twitter at Mike Detillier, NFL College Football Insider. I know how much we talk about Drew Brees and how great he is, but do we still take him for granted as good as he is? I mean, the Seahawks, Russell Wilson just found Graham the other night, 2 great catches, and the Bills were holding him and so on. But what Drew can do as far as his accuracy, his leadership, what he is between the ears, is he still – because we've heard all about Aaron Rodgers for years over on the NFC side. Is he still underrated, as crazy as this sounds, and undervalued?
Yeah, I talked to Chris Mars about this last week with Fox, and Chris brought up the point that, in his opinion, that Drew Brees is one of the top 5 quarterbacks of the Super Bowl era. And we've had that debate since that. And, we've went kind of back and forth with different people with different ideas. To be honest, I think he is. And right now, he's still playing at a very high level. And the Saints feed off Drew Brees' energy. So to answer the question, I believe he is underrated for what he has done in that time frame. You look at every record he's got. I mean, he's shattered around him. And despite the fact he's playing on a team that he will go into the NFL Hall of Fame all by himself. When you look at some of these Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they're going in with quite a few guys around them. That's what makes Tom Brady and Drew Brees special. Well, people say, Randy Moss. Well, Randy Moss had one great year in New England, but really his Hall of Fame stuff is all about Minnesota.
Sure.
When you look at the Patriots, Belichick and Brady will be the 2 guys that go in. And you look at with the Saints, it's just going to be Drew Brees. That is the remarkable point in this world of free agency. With all the moving parts, those 2 guys still perform at the highest level.
It really is. Mike Detillier, NFL Insider. Follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Detillier. All right, as we wrap it up, let's turn to LSU. Tough loss. Just couldn't get anything going on offense, and you know how limited they are at the QB position. It's not the young man's fault. They should have better options at that position. So now the Ed Ogeron thing, even if they went out, in my opinion, Mike, that thing's over. They got to go out and get what I've always said, who can take us to the college football playoff? Now, I want to go back and ask you again, is Jimbo in play? And if not, could you give me who you think, Herman and others, who are the top 2 or 3 candidates if you had to make a guess here?
I've always felt Tom Herman was at the top of their list, the very top. Now, with Texas in play here, that's still part of it. I've always felt the 2 top guys for the job at LSU that would make the most sense would be Tom Herman, Bobby Petrino.
Those are 2 good ones. I guess Chip Kelly's not going to leave. LSU recruits itself, Mike. We talked about this a few weeks ago. LSU had all that turmoil and all the static and noise around the program. Didn't hurt their recruiting one bit. Still landed a top 5 class last year. So that's how they roll. You get the sense that Kelly wants to stay in the NFL and wouldn't even go to a program that recruits itself, since the rumor is he doesn't like recruiting?
That's a correct rumor, too. I think he stays in San Francisco. So he's always envisions himself as a pro coach. I think his system is built for college football, but I think he wants to stay in the pros. He never liked the recruiting game at all.
Right.
And so, listen, if you're a head coach and don't like the recruiting game, you better find you a job in the professional ranks because that's not going to work in college football.
Let me ask you this, Mike. If Ole Miss wasn't under major NCAA investigation, and a lot of people feel like they're going to get hit pretty good in the spring, if they were not, let's say that NCAA cloud was never there and not there, do you believe that Hugh Freeze would be in the mix for the LSU job?
I think in the mix. I wouldn't put him in the top couple of people, but I think in the mix, yes. And listen, a lot of times, we talk about, guys like Petrino and Herman and Fisher. A lot of times we talk about those guys, and it ends up not being them.
Right.
It ends up being somebody kind of outside the fray that you really maybe haven't talked about. And that's where Oliva is under the gun here. He got caught last year with Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo left him waiting at the altar in a humiliating situation. That's why I stick the football middle finger at Jimbo Fisher and say, you can stay back in Tallahassee. You embarrassed me once, but I'm not going through this again. So what happens if Herman ends up at Texas? So now all of a sudden, if Jimbo decides I'm staying at Florida State, Herman goes to Texas, then where do you go? That's where you got to be smart enough to make that move and understand who's best for your program. And that's why I still think that Orgeron still has a chance. He has a chance if he can run the table, can win the last 3 games. And there's a scenario where maybe the big-name guys aren't going to come here. So I do think that don't totally rule out Orgeron, because I do think that if Ed wins the next 3 games, he still is a player in this LSU sweepstakes.
Okay, what about, as we wrap it up, what about Mullen? If Mullen had beat the 3 teams he should have beat, South Alabama, Kentucky, and BYU, and was sitting here at 7-2, do you think if they missed on a few guys that he would be in consideration? Because he's also an offensive guy, and he's proven that he can do it at the quarterback position and develop them, and that's what LSU desperately needs because they have all the other pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah, when you look at, I think, ideally for LSU, they would like to get the quarterback whisperer.
Right.
I mean, because that's been their quicksand at quarterback. So Dan would certainly fit the mold, and he understands the area to recruit in the same manner that Hugh Freeze does. He understands the area that he has to recruit. So, yeah, that would be a possibility. I don't think that he's in that mix.
Right.
But I think, Louisiana recruiting is a little bit different, just like Mississippi recruiting is a little different. You got to know the way of the land here. And I know even Nick Saban told me this when he first started, that it was totally different from anything he had ever kind of dealt with before. Now, he adjusted very quickly to it, but even Nick at first found it a little bit more than unusual, and I think that's where LSU's got a thought process has to kick in here. You just can't bring in somebody from out the blue and say, well, he's going to have great success recruiting. That guy's going to be able to adapt to the talent that's on here in the Deep South, which is immense, but it's a certain type of talent, and you're going to have to go outside the state for alignment.
Okay. Mike Detillier, LSU Saints Insider on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. Mike, have a great week. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Bo.
Wow, that was great. On the Saints, they have a chance to go 5-4 this week, and then on who LSU could hire.
Also favorited this week. I just want you to know that.
2?
2.
Everything's in the NFL's 2 to 3.5.
It's the Denver Broncos.
Well, look at the way Denver's been playing, though.
I know, but I'm saying it's the Broncos.
We'll take a break. We may touch on the Saints again. I want to get back into Shea Patterson. And how much will he play? Here's what I say. He'll play in the first 3 series. Bam. You agree or disagree? Twitter handle @BoBounds, number 601-707-3750.